Welcome everyone to 284 News. My name is Javon Wilson.
I'm Kamal Haynes.
And I'm Ron Grant.
And we are so thrilled and happy to be coming to you live out of the beautiful British Virgin Islands. The content continues via our website, 284media.com.
In today's news, special committee to investigate and report back to the House of Assembly to decide Speaker Willock's fate with 3 options to select from.
We also see Honorable Flax-Charles being applauded for calling out misogyny and attacks on mental health that was captured in the VINO Cartoon depicted and opposing the Premier's motion to exempt Speaker from paying bills.
And BVI shadowing North Korea with dictatorship style following government's latest move to overstep the judiciary on Speaker Willock's legal fee, says Honorable Penn.
We also see the Premier Fahie and Honorable Mitch Turnbull facing off in the House of Assembly just last night over Cabinet's consideration of belongership status for a convicted rapist. And viewers, Dr. Sharlon Lewis is joining us live today to speak about World Diabetes Month and, of course, what we're doing here in the BVI to celebrate. We have all the details for these and so much more on today's edition of 284 News.
You value traditions. Today, you value music. You value education. Family.
I love you.
Service.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Love. Life. At Popular, we're committed to you and everything our community values. For the things you value the most, count on us. Popular.
Viewers, welcome back. It is Thursday, November 4, 2021. My name is Javon Wilson.
And I'm Kamal Haynes, coming to you live from the beautiful British Virgin Islands. But we start with a hot topic where a special committee of up to 5 persons, consisting of members of the House of Assembly from each political party, is to be established to decide the fate of the Speaker of the House of Assembly on whether he will be made to pay his $120,000 legal bill or if it will be the fall on taxpayers' pockets. But this was revealed by Premier Andrew Fahie during Wednesday's sitting of the House of Assembly as he laid the motion on the table to be debated. What the Premier said, this special committee will be tasked with gathering all the evidence surrounding Speaker of the House Julian Willock's legal case, which will cause interviewing persons and assessing legal documents from a number of contracts and from the Supreme Court. Well, he said, following the conclusion of this committee, a report will be submitted to the House of Assembly, where he will be advised according to the findings and conclusions of this report. Well, according to the Premier, the committee will have 3 options to select from once a conclusion has been reached.
Whereas, having acted in his official capacity as Speaker, there are 3 possible considerations that could be determined by the House of Assembly, namely, A, there was no express permission by the House of Assembly, but the Honourable Speaker acted in his official capacity and in good faith, relying on the assumption of permission being at least implied and consistent with his duty, and the action is deemed warranted and with merit, and as a result, the payment of costs would be approved by the House of Assembly. B, there was no express permission by the House of Assembly, but the Honourable Speaker acted in his official capacity and in good faith, relying on the assumption of permission being at least implied and consistent with his duty, and the action is deemed warranted and with merit, but the payment of costs cannot be approved or considered by the House of Assembly. And C, there was no express permission by the House of Assembly, but the Honourable Speaker acted in his official capacity and in good faith, relying on the assumption of permission being at least implied and consistent with his duty. The action is not deemed warranted, and is without merit, and as a result, the House of Assembly ought not to approve payment of the costs. Now, therefore, be it resolved, this Honourable House by order appoints a special committee with no more than 5 members, but no less than 3 members, to consider and to report as to which of the following recommendations is to be made to the House of Assembly.
While Premier Fahie said this motion, which was updated from last Thursday's initial motion, is to allow for due process to occur, which he said will set a precedent for any similar occurrence in the future, while at the same time allowing the procedure to be fair and not one-sided.
But I also know, Mr. Speaker, from my own experience in life, to always ensure due process, so that when a decision is made, it's not made out of emotions, It's not made out of siding with anyone. It's not made out of pressure. It's not made out of biasness, Mr. Speaker, but it's made out of having all the facts in front of you. And, Mr. Speaker, have it properly laid out so that the facts are clear, so that it can stand the test of time. That, especially when it relates to the House of Assembly, must be done by the House of Assembly, because that is what the Public Finance Management Act dictates anyway. And as Minister of Finance, I have to ensure that my actions are directly in alignment with the Public Finance Management Act, Mr. Speaker, which calls for me not to make such decisions on my own for the House of Assembly when it comes to expenditure.
Well, viewers, this committee will have up to 2 months to present their report back to the House of Assembly. Meanwhile, both opposition leader Marlon Penn and 2nd District Representative Melvin Mitch Turnbull expressed their disapproval of this committee, where they argued it is an overreach of the judicial branch, which had already ruled on this matter, which should not have been brought to the House of Assembly. Well, Javon, all eyes were glued yesterday to the House of Assembly, and today, of course, as the proceedings continue. What persons have a lot of concern, but when it comes to this particular motion, we would have seen last week, the motion was just simply to exempt Speaker Willock from having to pay these legal fees, which obviously would have directly fallen on the taxpayers. Now, what the Premier is saying now, he's bringing a new motion, or what he would say a revised motion with these new additions, where he's calling now for a special committee which will be hosted between 3 to 5 persons, 5 being the maximum, a person of each of the parties of the House of Assembly. We have obviously the opposition leader Marlon Penn with the NDP. We obviously had Fraser, we have Melvin Mitch Turnbull, who are obviously in different parties. And then we have the Speaker of the House, we have the Premier, and then we have the AG. I think those are the 5 persons that will make up this particular committee. And what he's saying, at the end of this committee, they're going to select from 3 options. And one out of the 3 options basically states that, you know, Willock will have to pay for the $120,000 plus fee, $120,000 plus legal fee, while the other 2 are basically somewhat exempting him from that motion, meaning taxpayers would then have to foot that bill, which will come from that of the consolidated fund.
And, you know, Kamal, the concern is right now, I heard Honorable Mitch Turnbull in a very spirited speech last night actually, saying that there's no need for a committee. We are here telling you in the House of Assembly that we do not agree with this. In addition to that, we have been seeing residents within the populace. Not everyone is showing up physically to protests. But Kamal, as you examine what's happening even beyond the lives, as we go live to capture these protests, a lot of persons are really speaking out against this. And yes, that doesn't capture the full demographic of the BVI, but I think it is really making a statement, and I think something that the government of the Virgin Islands should take into consideration. One of the things that political activist Cindy Roseanne Jones had an issue with is the fact that she feels like this is being dragged out to frustrate protesters and persons who do not agree with this. But again, those debates continue today, and very different angles being taken by various legislators. So again, we just have to play the waiting game to see what's going to come out of this.
Well, what was even more concerning regarding this is, you know, we know since the onset of the Andrew Foy-led VIP government, there have been, you know, persons who have been talking so much about good governance, and to make such a move where you're overstepping that of a decision which was already handed down by the Supreme Court, one of the highest courts in the Caribbean, to then go and say you're going to create a committee then to reassess all the information at hand, all the reports, etc., then to come to a decision. It means that you're saying that the Supreme Court's decision doesn't stand?
Well, the Premier is remaining very adamant about the fact that he believes that this decision was made in the interest of the Virgin Islands. And I think he's very clear on trying to set a precedence for cases going forward. So, you know, no matter what sides of the coin you fall on, we still have to wait and see what's going to happen. Indeed. Viewers, as we move on, a key revelation coming out of the COI was the fact that compassionate consideration for belongership was given to a convicted rapist by the Cabinet of the Virgin Islands, while it soon became evident that the status was not granted to that individual and another that was being considered. Member for the 2nd District, Honorable Melvin Mitch Turnbull, argued that it should not have been considered in the first place. It was quite a debate last evening in the House of Assembly.
Members of the executive branch of this Virgin Islands would seek to discuss and debate against, Mr. Speaker, the voice of the then Deputy Governor, the opinion and position of the then Attorney General, to not even consider an individual who was convicted of rape for status in this territory. Mr. Speaker, is that, we wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for the COI?
Point of information, Mr. Speaker.
Now, viewers, just then the Premier stood up on a point of correction, adding that the member for the second is using this narrative to score cheap political points, and moved to clarify what exactly happened in the event of this case.
I'm not taking that anymore. That charade run long enough. When that came to the COI, you keep looking at things from all sides. You have no intention of seeing anything other than political. When that matter came to the COI, it was not part of the criticism given to the minister. And you need to get your facts and watch the whole of the COI, because nobody gave no rapist any status. When the thing came to the COI, the records from the police came forward saying that the man had a clean bill of health. There was nothing wrong with his record. I've heard this being battered wrong in the public so many times, and people actually believe it. And I told you already that's not so. And you still come and saying it. The problem is that some of you only look at the COI as the savior to the territory and forget that we here trying to toil. It was wrong how it was brought up. And the minister went back the next time and he corrected it. So who blamed?
Now, viewers, the Premier of the Virgin Islands has said that his government was presented with a clean slate as it relates to the background history for this particular felon and cannot be blamed for examining a case that came before cabinet.
But who's protecting any kind of thing here for the Virgin Islands people? Who? Nobody. Everything we did was wrong. Everything we brought on ourselves. I just need to rise on that because I heard that one too many times. We never approved any rapists. It is not true. If you want to talk about why we couldn't get our own people back in, and people who commit crime who are not from here can't get out, how come nobody goes in that angle from over there? So I heard that thing once, twice, 3 times enough. It is not true. It never happened. And I can't do anything about the CIA, how they did it. It went back and it was clarified, and that went under the cloak of the night. So remember, you could speak anything as you want, but that one I'm not laying on further. It was never true. It cannot be true. And the reason that it got there, check the same persons who call the COI, why their people under them brought a clean bill of health through their record.
Now, viewers, that was Honorable Premier Fahie at last night's House of Assembly.
Well, viewers, up next, we are live with Dr. Sharlon Lewis of the BVI Diabetes Association to speak on their incredible upcoming activities beginning this weekend. And BVI shadowing North Korea with dictatorship style following government's latest move to overstep the judiciary on Speaker's legal fees, says Penn. We get to these stories when 284 News return.
The wait is over. CCT Fire is here. Experience ultra-fast download, seamless streaming, and even more reliable connectivity on an all-new fire-blazing super-fast CCT Fiber network. CCT Fire. Bring it home and upgrade today.
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now today in studio we have a very special guest, Dr. Sharlon Lewis. She is the medical advisor and vice president of the BVI's Diabetes Association. Welcome back to 284 Media.
Thank you for having me once again, Jovan. We really appreciate your support.
Of course, and absolutely. We always are here to raise awareness on many of the important causes in the territory, and diabetes is something we continue to have a conversation on. Clearly, as a representative of this association, the BVI Diabetes Association, you have a front seat into examining what the extent of this issue is in our territory. Yeah. Let's just start with that. When we think about diabetes, how deeply rooted is it, and do we have a handle on it right now?
Unfortunately, you know, our lifestyles are they promote the development of diabetes, and we're actually seeing a lot more young people developing diabetes, and this is one of the reasons that we in the association try so hard to raise awareness, because it's no longer just an older person's disease. We're seeing so many young persons being affected now. You know, we look at our lifestyles, we're eating a lot more between, you know, the lockdowns and just changing lifestyle. We're not as active as we used to be. We're gaining a lot more weight, and all these things lead to the development of diabetes. Unfortunately, I also, you know, happen to know that with earlier diabetes, you also get the complications like kidney diseases, and now we have so many more people on dialysis, and, you know, we're really trying to avoid people getting to that stage. That's where we come in the Diabetes Association, trying to raise awareness from, you know, grassroots, from a on the ground kind of level, that it's the layman's, and, you know, that are pushing this, you know, message about prevention, about, you know, care for the diabetic patient. So that's why we're here.
You mentioned how deeply rooted this is and how it really marries our diet, the way we eat.
Yeah.
And, you know, that dates back for centuries. I think even within the region, it's a very prevalent problem.
It is.
But you said something very alarming. A lot of young people are being diagnosed with diabetes.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the early detection symptoms? What are we seeing at first sight when it comes to diabetes that lets a person know that they might be at risk?
So there are two types of diabetes. There's type 1, there's type 2. 9 times out of 10, someone will have type 2 diabetes. Generally, the symptoms are somewhat similar, but the body type is a bit different. The type 1 diabetic is usually a child. They will usually be very thin, underweight even. An older person is who would get type 2 diabetes, and when I say older, more like an adult.
Yes.
And that person may often be obese. That person may often have, you know, other cofactors like hypertension. But some of the general symptoms that you're going to get with diabetes on a whole, number one, passing a lot of urine. Because when your body's trying to get rid of the extra sugar, it's going to pass out in the urine. It makes you, you know, go to the bathroom a lot more often. With that, you're going to get a lot more thirst. So you're going to be thirsty all the time. You're drinking water, but you're not really getting that thirst quenched. A lot of times too, you do eat a lot more because your blood sugars are so unstable that your body interprets it as you need something to eat, and so you eat a lot more. You may have initial weight gain, but then weight loss is often seen when your body is not able to use the sugar properly, and it then turns to fat for energy instead. You can get things like blurry vision. You can get things like, you know, problems with circulation in your limbs, but that's a bit later stage. But some of the symptoms that you look for will be like related to your eating and your metabolism.
Got it. Now, we have a dynamic month of activities planned to commemorate the awareness. Let's talk about what's happening on Saturday first. I know there is the Elton George's Run Walk, and then we're going to, of course, speak about some of the activities.
So the Elton George's Run Walk was initiated by one of our late, great past presidents, Elton George's himself. And it's to get people out. We want to get people out. We want to get people active. We're going to do it from the Cyril B. Romney Tortola Pier Park, and it's going to be all the way to the Ebenezer Thomas School in Seacoast Bay and back. So we encourage everybody to come out. It's a nice flat route. There's no hills. We do have a lot of older persons still who are in the association who want to support us. So we try to keep it, you know, somewhat, you know, easy enough for everybody to be able to partake.
Right.
We encourage you to bring your kids out. Please bring your children out. Let them start to be active from young. Let them learn that, you know, they need to keep their activity levels going as they get older. So we encourage everybody to come out. We do have t-shirts available for sale, but you have to contact the office beforehand. So please, if you can get your orders in, because we really won't have that many t-shirts pre-printed. We don't want to end up, you know, in issues having them left over. So we're asking everybody to kind of order their shirts beforehand. If you don't have a t-shirt, because we know that things are very bad for some people right now, and, you know, economically you might not be able to afford the $25 contribution, which would give you a t-shirt, and I think it's $15 for children. If you can't afford it, honestly, just dress yourself up and come join us anyway. We just want to get everybody out and active. That's what we're really trying to do.
Excellent. What about some of the other activities as we begin to close out?
So we do have a lot of screening events going on. We have some at at Right Way. We do have a church service coming up on the 14th, which actually is the actual diabetes day.
Yes.
And for those who are coming to the walk on Saturday, please, look pretty, because we're actually going to be taking our human circle picture immediately after the walk, because we'll have on our blue t-shirts, blue for Diabetes Month. We are also going to be having a tech talk on the 23rd of November, and I'm encouraging any family who has a type 1 diabetic, we're encouraging you especially to come out, because we have an initiative going on right now where we're giving out free continuous glucose monitors to those families who have children especially that have type 1 diabetes. A continuous glucose monitor is one where they don't have to prick their finger anymore. They have a sensor that goes onto their arm or their tummy or wherever, and it continuously reads their blood sugars every 5 minutes.
Wow.
We have one little boy, he was 2 years old when he started, I think he's now 3. When he started, I remember him coming to the event and he put his little finger out to get his little finger prick done. His family has been so happy since he's been fitted with his monitor, because now they don't have to prick him, and it makes it so much easier to control your diabetes, because then you can actually see what your blood sugars look like. You can decide if you're going to have that cheat meal or not. You can then be able to better gauge your insulin use. So for type 1 diabetes, please make sure you come out, make sure you contact us at the association. And for persons who are on insulin and diabetic, even if it's type 2, please contact us at the office, because we do have an initiative going on and we're trying to, put that out there for our community.
Thank you so much. Before you go, can you plug the page as well as the number they can use to contact you guys?
No, you're putting me on the spot, because my memory is horrible. So I'm hoping that we're going to get this posted.
I think it's on the flyer, so hopefully we can just call the number.
The office is at Main Street. It's in the Jana Downing building, right next to Downing Architects on Main Street. It's just a little ways down from your Diana Donovan home, just before you get to the hospital.
Okay.
And we do have a Facebook page. It's BVI Diabetes. So please check us out.
Dr. Sharlon Lewis, thank you so much for always keeping the conversation alive. Definitely something we need to stay at the front of. Diabetes in the BVI. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Jovan.
All right, viewers, we're going to go to a very quick commercial break, but we are coming back with more news. Stick with us.
Welcome back, viewers. Well, opposition leader Marlon Penn has said that the recent step by Premier Andrew Foy to establish a select committee to deliberate a matter which was already decided in the Supreme High Court is putting the BVI in a similar light to that of North Korea. Well, Penn made that disclosure while debating the motion in the House of Assembly, which will see the establishment of a select committee which will decide on whether Speaker of the House Julian Willock pays his more than $120,000 legal bill, or whether taxpayers will foot the cost using a consolidated fund. Well, Penn said he did not see the need for the establishment of any committee, considering that due process was already executed during the court proceedings, which ruled that Willock was responsible as a private citizen to pay the legal fees from his discontinued injunction against the Commission of Inquiry's 3 attorneys.
He had due process. We know in the House no one to give due process. We have that authority to give due process over the court's process. Is there something in the standing orders and something in the Constitution that speaks to that level of authority that we have as a House of Assembly that I don't know about? We're going on a slippery slope. We're to the bottom of the slope, Mr. Speaker. And this step makes us look familiar with North Korea. A level of dictatorship where everything is controlled by one individual. We're now interfering with the judiciary. We've already taken over the House. We control the House now. The House is run by the executive, and the House is run by the same person. No wonder the House is here contemplating whether to pay a bill when the court was very clear on what needs to happen with this process. Because when you put people to work, you gotta make sure they get paid. So we'll put the Speaker to work. Have to make sure that his bills are paid.
Well, Penn said that the evidence and the due process executed by the courts is as clear as day, and that he was not going to be a part of the committee, as he deemed it an overreach of the judiciary and pointless.
Evidence and the due process that this process went through in the courts is clear. So the tactics and the delays, the constant delays, the smoke screens about a select committee, and the fact that we're going to use one member from every political party in the House, it's just that, tactics. And I'll make it clear that I'm not going to be any select committee to further undermine the sanctity of the judiciary system, the sanctity of the institutions that we continue to discuss, that we're building or we're trying to build. We like to talk about institutions and the independence of institutions when it's convenient, when it suits us, or when the timing suits us. The act of even bringing this resolution to this Honorable House to adjudicate something that was already adjudicated in the courts. The place for due process when it comes to legal action. The House of Assembly is not the place for due process for legal action. So you're telling me that we're going to establish a select committee to discuss a court matter and make a ruling on a court matter in the Honorable House of Assembly? We're no longer going on a slippery slope. We're down the bottom of the slope, Mr. Speaker.
Also taking a similar stance to Penn was opposition legislator Melvin Mitch Turnbull, who said that he too wanted no part in the select committee, as the decision was already handed down by the courts, who are authorized to make such a decision.
All right, viewers, in what can be considered a brave and unapologetic move, female legislator and at-large representative Honorable Flax-Charles boldly condemned the misogyny and mental health attack that was exemplified against political activist Cindy Roseanne Jones in a cartoon published by VINO just yesterday. Honorable Flax-Charles expressed her immense disappointment.
For us as British Virgin Islanders, how are we so insensitive? Mr. Speaker, I was bombarded by so many calls, so many messages. Misogyny is alive, well, kicking, and very rampant in the BVI. The dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women. You know, Mr. Speaker, I too have been called crazy many times because I have spoken up. Mr. Speaker, I've been called crazy by members of this very House because I have spoken up. Sometimes it is thinly disguised. And Mr. Speaker, today my heart is heavy.
Now, viewers, Honorable Flax-Charles expressed that she was embarrassed to be associated with stains of corruption that attaches itself to politicians. She said enough is enough and that women who use their voices should not be dismissed and labeled as crazy, especially amidst the prevalence of real mental health issues in this territory.
I am very insulted that I am being grouped into a category accused of drug running, gang banging, and whatever it is was said. Because in my lifetime, I've never seen a line of cocaine, much less a brick. And so I understand institutions too, Mr. Speaker. I understand law. I understand what happens when the law is broken. I also understand, Mr. Speaker, when certain things are adjusted and flexed, even when things are not done as they should according to the law. But today, as I am quoting from Monday, I was stirred by the demonstration of democracy that occurred at the sitting of the House of Assembly.
Honorable Flax certainly commanded the attention of not only the legislators, but also of the BVI community. But perhaps her most shocking statement was standing in solidarity with residents who believe that legal fees incurred by the Speaker of the House of Assembly should not be paid by taxpayers.
You know, I am a representative, and that I will be, because I do not and will not ever consider myself a politician. The definition of a politician as what the general public knows it to be, I cannot be that, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I recuse myself and allow my role as a representative to stand in my stead today. The noble people of this territory, their will expressed through me, must echo their sentiment that this financial burden ought not to be shouldered by the nation's purse. And Mr. Speaker, I want to make it very clear, and I will repeat myself, conformity is doing what you're told, regardless of what is right. Morality is doing what's right, regardless of what you are told.
That was Honorable Flax-Charles delivering a very precise but straight to the point speech, and certainly something that is being applauded not only by women, Kamal, but I think persons across the territory who genuinely believe that this was a blatant attack on Miss Cindy Roseanne Jones, especially amidst everything that we've been dealing with as it relates to mental health and also misogyny. And Miss Flax-Charles is also saying this is something that she, as a female legislator, would have experienced herself and cannot continue to condone. So persons are very happy that she took a stance to speak up and stand in solidarity with the concerns of residents in the BVI.
Indeed. Viewers, that's it for today's news roundup. I'm Kamal Haynes.
And my name is Javon Wilson. Have a good night. Bye-bye.